Thank you. You're probably expecting a bit of a stat fest because we're reporting on this research on this, what I think is a neglected topic, really, understanding customer journeys. So I know it's after lunch, so not too many stats. I've tried to make them as the reports as large as I can, and I've included some of the best practice tips and visuals as well. Now, often the visuals work better in SlideShare on your computer or rather than on screen. So I've done a bit.ly link for you here, Smart Experience, which has got all the slides and access to the report as well, because it's a free report which we arranged with eCommerce Expo. So I did test that. I hope it works. Right, let's go. So a bit about me. I'm fortunate enough to have been working on e-commerce for quite a while now. The top book there is just into the 6th edition, and we did the first edition in 2002 on e-business and e-commerce management, it used to be called back then. Now, the thing with my publishers, they only update the books every 3 years or so, and quite a lot happens in 3 years with digital marketing. So I've created my own online experience, which is Smart Insights, to share best practice advice. You can see our mantra is plan, manage, optimize. So we like to help businesses improve their digital marketing e-commerce through our best practice advice. And we do cover the whole range of digital marketing, but we also focus a lot on e-commerce as well. So we've got specific reports on that, including our e-commerce Bible. So into this, looking at the challenge of understanding customer journeys then. So we like to try and visualize, because customer journeys are so complex, you need to simplify, of course. And I'm sure you've read numerous blog articles saying the funnel is dead. But actually the funnel is still a pretty useful way to visualize, to simplify progress through the customer journey. We've created our race framework and looking at the KPIs to support that. You may have seen the McKinsey and Google ZMOT as well. It's probably an example of a slide you can't see too well on screen today. So what we've been doing in the research, we've been looking at how businesses visualize the customer journeys, the type of techniques they use, how they improve the customer journeys. So conversion rate optimization was one of the areas that we looked at. So I'll share the results on that later. On the visualization side, I just wanted to show that the previous slide, looking at the funnel, what a gross simplification it is really. And these days we've got paid, owned and earned media together. So if you're looking to maximize your footprint online, I think doing one of these sort of marketplace maps is a really good technique. And the one I've shown here is from Zenith Optimedia. They presented that at Brighton SEO. So particularly if you're discussing between a client and an agency, or a consultant and an agency, a good way to think what's the best way to increase the footprint. Now, one of the recent trends is and I see this with my my teenage daughter. She's just turned 13, and in the last year, she's just stopped watching TV completely, and she's on YouTube all the time. And she seems very influenced by these YouTubers. But this recent research from Ogilvy and TNS shows that she's not alone. So this was actually researching cars, beauty products and smartphones. So it's saying that around 2/3 of people there are actually using YouTube to inform the decision. So when we talk about customer experiences, it's not just the website, it's much wider than that on social media. And in the book, we talk a lot about the online value proposition, so how you give a feel for the brand within your website and the benefits it offers. And we recently had at the Smart Insights conference, we had Tesco speaking there about how they do this in new markets. And Of course, Tesco are well known in the UK and known for their problems at the moment, but they're actually launching in a lot of international markets. And I'm just going to show you how they've exploited YouTube to get that awareness. Now, the video is in Polish, but I'm hoping you're good at Polish.
Tak, mamusiu. Mama, wystarczy potakiwać.
Dyskru.pl. Ty kupujesz, my dostarczamy.
So did that make sense? Nice example as well with YouTube, because that actually cost Tesco just a few thousand euros, and I think that video reached about 750,000 people in Poland there. So on to the stats and the reports, and one of the first questions we asked was we were understanding how people actually understand the customer journeys of their audience. So customer journey mapping that I'll come on to, path analysis, I've got examples of all of these coming up, the top 3 there. Just to pick out on this one, really quite a small proportion here who are using these purchase intent surveys. So you may know the 4Q or iPerceptions survey, where you ask people why they're on the site, and you then get feedback after the session on how good the experience was. So still relatively rare, not something you'd want to run on the site all the time, but useful particularly before a redesign. So this is actually from iPerceptions, and they're calling this active research. So it's sort of real-time feedback on the experience. So yeah, number of customer journey techniques that I've put in the deck. Understanding the dynamics between people moving from online to offline channels. And now we've got the digital experiences in store. We need to think about those. We've also got the mobile experiences and the desktop. So we need to think about how people are switching between channels. And the role for us as marketers, I think, and designers is to try and develop these seamless journeys between channels. And that's what these visualization techniques can do. We've got on Smart Insights a persona toolkit to help you see some alternative methods of doing this. So often you'll need to do more traditional research to see other influences on consumers. So of course people mention search engines as being a major influence, online reviews, and so on. And so we need to, as many of you will be doing, we need to monitor in real time those reviews, and when there's issues to look at resolving them as fast as possible. The other thing we need to remember is that we're not turning online into a silo, and we should really make it as easy as possible to switch to the offline channel. So tools such as availability checkers, store locators, and we did ask some questions on that in the research as well, which I don't have time to go into today. But I think at a top level, I'd recommend this approach. Came from Google a couple of years ago, ROPO, so research online and purchase offline. And I think many perhaps non-digital specialists, they'll see the digital channel just in terms of what the pounds and pence it delivers from that channel alone. But you can see from this example, and this was actually smartphones, so quite a high-tech product, but a lot of the purchases that were influenced by the website here were eventually fulfilled in the store there in the bottom left. So ROPO is a good top-level way of reviewing this as well. The use of path analytics was that was one of the most popular techniques in the research, as you would expect. This is the Google Analytics user flow. I'd have to say personally, I don't find this that useful. Maybe I'm not. It's not for me. What I prefer to do is what I call forward and reverse path analysis, where you look at an individual page, you look where people are going forward, perhaps with the in-page analytics, or you see the reverse paths coming to one of your outcomes. But certainly useful for a top-level view. The other top 3 technique for visualizing journeys and understanding customers was customer personas. And I've got the example here of Dulux simply because they were one of the first adopters of this in the UK back in 2004, 2005. And I was talking to their designers recently, and they still use this technique quite actively. So we've got one, I think this is their primary persona they're looking to appeal to here. So they really get inside her mind, understand media consumption, devices, social media, and so on. And then that goes through the whole journey. I think they actually have 6 personas in total, and interestingly 5 of them are female, because in this particular area that's the main influencer on purchase. So this is actually the original Dulux site from back in 2005, and they used the idea with personas is that you then develop specific content and messaging to appeal to individuals. So for our persona Penny here, we're looking to inspire her, so they've got a panel specifically for that. Of course, the Dulux site has moved on a lot since then, and we've now got a nice responsive technique, but you can still see they're using these sort of inspiration messages to get the language right. So it's not just a case of the functional calls to action, it's the right language for the personas as well. So in part 2 of our research, there's just 3 parts, incidentally. So that's what we're looking at now is managing, and then the final one is looking at personalization techniques. Now, I think with this particular topic of customer journeys, it's a bit neglected because there isn't really a label for it. I think we've talked in the past about website design, but clearly with mobile and now social and these other platforms, it's much broader than that. So I think it's a really useful approach that Forrester introduced a couple of years ago to talk about customer experience management, or CXM. Now, where I would disagree with Forrester is their scope of CXM. They've got it very much from a siloed channel perspective, so content management, commerce, maybe personalization, marketing automation. So all of those are important, but I think CXM has to be much wider than that. And a key issue I was interested to understand in the research was who's actually managing. If we're saying CXM is important, who's managing that? Is it IT, is it marketing, or is it no one? So let's see what the research said. Oh yeah, this was my attempt, I think, from the 2005 book to really show the complexity and to show that this is much bigger than that. This is really our challenge with online marketing, to get this context right. And we'll look later at how companies assessed that context. So right touching, I called it, not probably the best term. So I think we'll have to remove that from the latest books. So that question then, do you have someone responsible for CXM? Simple question, yes, no. We've seen the scope of it. Who can hold their hand up proudly? Thank you. More, please? That's interesting, isn't it? If we're saying managing the experience across different channels is important, that does imply it needs someone to measure it, manage it, and improve it. And so that's why I was interested to ask this. And we did split it up to look at whether it was a defined person or maybe a shared responsibility, which could perhaps cause some problems. But similar to you, relatively, the majority of people don't really have a defined person. So then we looked at how we're actually measuring it and how we're reporting it. And there was a few, as you'd expect, really, people are looking at satisfaction surveys. They're looking at reviews and ratings for e-commerce sites, for the brand itself, or for products. But relatively few people are using direct-to-customer approaches where you've got a panel of customers that you review with. I was working with Barclay Card a while back, and they'd actually recruited about 1,000 customers that they would break out into focus groups and really look at how they were involving the experience. And of course, they did have a customer experience manager. Net Promoter Score, this is where you ask on, this is the would you recommend us question. So it really gets that focus of whether you're getting the experience right. It's used a lot in the States. This would suggest it's not so used so much in the UK. And the good thing about NPS is it puts in place a process to say, well, where our experience is going wrong, how can we improve it? Now, we looked at the analytics data, Google Analytics and the customer journeys there, but of course those are quite the hard measures of experience. I think there's also a lot of great tools out there which allow you to look at that more qualitative feedback. And on Smart Insights, we used a lot of these. We have about 300,000 sessions a month. So we put on, say, Camp Ireland across every page of the site, so that if there's a problem with content in one area of the site, we'll get feedback and we can fix that. Qualaroo's a different style of tool where you can use that on one part of the site. So we used that on our checkout page to say, actually, what's stopping you buying now? We don't run that all the time, but we got some useful feedback around pricing using that technique. The other sort of technique that I would recommend, we'll see in a moment that we did ask about usability studies, and I was surprised how few people use those, probably because of the cost of them or because you'd only do them before a major redesign. But there are what some people call guerrilla techniques. I don't have time to run this clip now, but if you take a look at user testing or What Users Do, which is a UK company, you'll see examples of where they've run like mini focus groups, and those are as low cost as £50 per session. So really any business, including someone like us, we can use those without the high cost. So looking at a different type of measure now, I've always felt with the way we manage or the way we measure e-commerce and web, we tend to have a focus on a single session view. So we look at, say, bounce rate on a session, how many people stay on the site and how many disappear immediately. While it's important to think about those, you also need to look at the long-term view as well. I think it's the same with email marketing. We all report on open clicks at a campaign level, but it's much more interesting over a period of 6 months or a year, your whole audience, how active are they? So I'd really advocate, a lot of the US commentators in this area talk about hurdle rates. So it's the proportion of people who are active, and often for an email list, it will be way below 50%, and likewise for the site itself. So you think about making people more active, and in retail, using RFM in particular to see different groups, how often they're using different services, different products. But quite a few people are using these apparently, the hurdle rates at the top there. So the third and final part of the talk, I thought we'd look at some practical techniques people are using, who's using personalization, where are they using it, and how are they simplifying the journey. Do any of you recognize this video? Google did one a couple of years, thanks. Okay, I'm not boring too many people then. It's an oldie but goodie, which shows how easy it is to destroy the experience online. So I hope you enjoy this.
Hey, it's that thanks.
You sure?
Yeah.
Username?
Ooh, Nick M?
No.
NM 1983?
No.
Zandy Pops?
Sorry.
Zandy Pops?
No, okay, don't worry, I'll help. What's your postcode?
Oh, it's GU749ZT.
Welcome back, Nick Forever. Please listen carefully to the spread license agreement before continuing with your purchase of a loaf of bread. If you do not, blah, blah, blah. You also agree not to use any bread-based products for any purposes prohibited by the United Kingdom law, including without limitation design, development, and manufacture of missiles, chemical, nuclear, or biological weapons. Tick. I'm afraid you've timed out.
What? Sorry. Hello? Excuse me. Oh, yeah, hey.
Just one loaf, sir.
Yeah, we just...
What's your username?
It's Nick Forever, but number 4, not the...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to check that you're a real person. Could you say that for me?
That's not even a word.
Okay, how about this one?
You know what, forget it.
This one?
Paper Potter Nice.
You're in.
Great, I'm in.
£8.85.
It's supposed to be 98 pence.
Plus express delivery.
What's that?
Oh, well, it's express delivery. It's fast. So there's, standard. Standard delivery, that's £4.99.
Why?
Bread insurance. You didn't untick the don't decline bread insurance option.
You know what, I think I'll risk it.
It is quite close to the sell-by date.
Don't care.
98 pence it is. If you want to pop back in 5 business days, it'll be ready for your collection.
Well, I need it now, obviously.
Oh, okay. You want the take-home today price, though? That's £3.27.
You know what, I'm going to go.
Come back soon.
I won't.
Okay, it was good to see you enjoyed that. Maybe enjoyed that a bit more than the stats, perhaps. I certainly did. Alluding there to all the we were talking about hurdle rates, and really there are so many hurdles that we put in place. Site speed isn't something we've talked about yet, but all the surveys show, or the actual real observations of conversion rate show that site speed can make a huge difference. So, CRO, I thought we'd do a bit of audience interaction on this one, actually. So, this is conversion rate optimization. It's not just about boosting conversion rate. It's about boosting revenue and profit, revenue per visit. That's really the aim overall. But you can see we've got a number of alternatives. So, the most popular was people using CRO in-house, but just short-term initiatives. Could I have a show of hands for that here? We should see this is similar, maybe, or maybe this audience is different. How many of you, the second one, aren't doing CRO at all at the moment? Okay, thank you for admitting to that. Seem to be a few more in our survey. What about using in-house resource, so you're running continuous CRO programs? Thank you. So a few more there. That's good. I think that's really where people should be aiming for. Agency use of short-term CRO. I've always been amazed how few agencies there are in this space. But if you need to know some, I can recommend a few. And then we've got continuous programs as well. So if we do the reveal. That's where I was saying relatively few people are using usability. So on to personalization. Now, the survey we did here, it was because of our audience is not just retail e-commerce, it's broader. You can see there's quite a few businesses not using personalization at all. But that's actually surprising for any type of business, given the tools that are available now. Otherwise, it was quite across the board, but quite a few people seem to think there was a good way to improve their personalization, which is, of course, why you're all here to talk to suppliers, I guess. So, personalization tools are one technique. If you want to look at running your own testing programs, what we've developed on Smart Insights, I asked James Gerd, who's a specialist e-commerce consultant, to take a look at different page template types and say, what's the common practice, what's the best practice, and let's look at some of the leading practice with three or four retailers. So if you take a look at our guide, it will allow you to identify different areas to test. on usability, we've seen that's expensive, but there are quite a few good reports I'd recommend. I'm actually based in Leeds, and up in Leeds we've got Simple Usability. They've got a lot of good examples, free reports to prompt you with ideas to check. So do check out their benchmarks. And there's eDigital Research as well, isn't there? So I think this is the last area I was interested to look at, and that's this question of how have people adapted to mobile to provide a specific mobile experience. So it's pretty good overall. So just around a fifth of people don't have a mobile optimized site. I was a bit surprised right at the top how many people have gone for the responsive design, because for me that might give a better experience on, say, smartphone, but often it can degrade the desktop experience. And in fact, I was listening to a guy from Tesco earlier talking about their site architecture or their whole IT architecture, and he was saying you shouldn't be using responsive. You should be going for a more adaptive approach where you're giving specific content and functionality for smartphone and mobile. So relatively few people were in this adaptive area, and we can expect that will grow in the future. Haven't mentioned email yet, so the last area is to say think beyond the website at remarketing. These are touch points as Halfords have grown their use of this marketing automation via email. And then we've got remarketing via display ads as well. This is some recent research from BCG that I'm sure many of you use remarketing and know the power of it, but this proves the sort of uplift that you get, particularly on first-time visitors who haven't converted. That simple reminder is again part of the overall customer experience for me as well. So finally, what we do at Smart Insights is we're all about helping people get to the next level of their capability and their competence. So what I've developed as a follow-on from the talk, if you go to the Smart Experience URL, I hadn't actually had time to finish it when I was creating the deck, but if you go along there now, you'll see that you can rate your own capability, and hopefully this will give you a bit of a roadmap there. So that is the final slide. Thanks for listening, and I hope there's some useful insights there. Cheers.